Hello everyone, it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing how I edit my photos for Instagram and for my blogs and things like that. But before I jump into that, I wanted to get on camera face to face with you guys and just kind of talk about it and have some disclaimers before we jump in. This is a video that I've been thinking about doing for a long time just because I get a lot of questions about that. Recently I had a fellow design team member ask how to edit photos kind of in the way that I edit photos, and so I was going to do this video just for that design team and leave it at that, but I thought, you know what, let's go ahead, I'll put it on my YouTube channel, maybe it'll be helpful to somebody else. Why I was hesitant is because the majority of my channel focuses on Bible journaling, and I don't ever want somebody to get caught up in the social media aspect of it and to distract from the purpose of Bible journaling, because if you are not posting on Instagram, that's okay. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. If you don't want to edit your photos, that's okay. Still post. You do not have to have perfectly edited, because mine aren't perfectly edited, let me tell you, perfectly edited, bright white, perfectly staged photos to post and share your Bible journaling, because you never know how that scripture that you journaled might reach out and affect somebody and brighten their day, or it might just be exactly what they needed to hear, regardless of whether your background is white or you have photo props or whatever it might be. Don't let this be that focus. So girl, I see you, the girl over there that is like me, who's a perfectionist, who feels like you can't post anything until you've got it down perfected. Throw that out the window. This is just a tool to help you if it's something that you're interested in looking into. Now, specifically for those of you who are asking me about applying for design teams and creative teams, I get that question a lot, and one of their biggest requirements for applying for a design team or a creative team is to have, well-lit photos, staged photos, photos with white backgrounds, and things like that. So I'm hoping that this will be a tool for you guys. I'm going to say right now, I am not a professional. I do not have this perfected. Yes, I did take several classes in college and in high school on photography and using Photoshop and things like that, but if any of my professors watch this video, they'll probably be horrified because I'm probably doing it all wrong, and that's okay. What I did was I just went on to YouTube and searched how to do what I'm going to be showing you guys today, and I just kind of picked and mixed and matched different techniques from different videos to suit my needs and how I want to do things. Now, you can go in and spend hours meticulously editing every little detail of one photo. This girl's not about that life, and so I've picked what kind of goes quickly for me, that I have down in a routine, kind of use the same steps for every photo, and I don't want to spend a lot of time. Thankfully, the Instagram is pretty low quality photos. You're not really going to want to print those photos, and so there's a little bit of forgiveness in your photo quality, and so that is something that, if you're going to be taking this technique and then blowing a photo up to like canvas size, no, it's probably not going to work. So just keep that in mind. But I'm going to show you a couple different options. I'm going to show you how I edit on my iPhone, and I'm going to show you how I edit in Photoshop. Now, I understand that both of those things cost money, and so if you don't have those things, don't freak out. Don't feel like you can't post photos if you don't edit them. That is not the case. Instagram has already a whole bunch of built-in tools into the Instagram app that you can use to brighten your photos and to boost the colors and things like that. I'm not going to show my photo setup just because there's tons of videos on YouTube for that. Search it, they're all out there. I will link the 2 studio lights that I use down below. Those make a big difference for me, but up until about a year ago I didn't have studio lights. I just laid out my project in front of a window, used a white foam board to reflect light, and called it good. If you have questions about how to do that, search YouTube, and there are tons of videos on how to do that. So I'm not going to really show that process. I'm just going to show how I edit the photos once they've been taken. So let's jump over. I know that you can record your phone stuff, but I'm just going to actually use my camera to record my phone, and I think that's going to work just fine. And then we'll hop over to my computer and I'll show you how I edit in Photoshop as well. So I hope that these tips are helpful. If along the way you see something that I'm doing and you say, no, Lindsay, there's a way easier way to do that, please leave me a comment down below and let me know. This is just how I've been doing it and been getting by with what I've been doing. So call me out if I'm doing something wrong or if there's an easier way to do it. But let's jump over and let's dive in, and I'll kind of show you my process. Okay, so I am way more zoomed out than I normally am on my desk because I want to kind of show you how I take my photo with my phone and then go in and edit. So this is my journaling Bible, and I am using the iPhone 7 Plus, I believe. I did start out on YouTube and all that kind of goodness with the iPhone 5, so you know, I did kind of the same technique with that. So that is not, it doesn't matter what phone you have. They're all almost better than the DSLR that I started with like 10 years ago. So you can really get a lot done with your phone. So I'm just in the regular camera app for iPhone. So just the regular camera. I don't have anything fancy on it. I do make sure, because I primarily post on Instagram, and so I always take my photos in square format just because then I don't have to crop it, and then it can be used anywhere. So I, you know, do go ahead and click on the square, and then all I'm going to do is just line up the photo, kind of position it where I want. Now, of course, the key for a white background is to start with a white background. Yes, you can go in and color change and things like that in Photoshop, but I just bought a white desk. Before I had a white desk, I just used one of those like white poster boards that you had for school, and I would just switch it out when it would get dirty and have that behind my objects or whatever, you know, whatever I did like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just take my photo. Now, one thing that you may not have realized with the camera app is you can actually tap on an area of the photo, and that's gonna change your focus. So I wanna make sure that my lettering is in focus. Now, you'll see that there's like a little sun. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it when it's focused on that, but there's like a little sun image. And that right off the bat is a way to brighten up your image. So if I tap on the letters and then I just push and drag my finger up, I can brighten the photo. Now you can see it's giving me an HDR warning or like blurb, and that means it's switching this to, I think it's high definition something rather. So it kind of blows out and does some weird things with the colors. So I don't want that. So I want to make sure that I only move this up just a little bit before that HDR warning comes on, and then I can go ahead and take my photo. So there is my photo, nothing fancy, but it's already pretty white, pretty bright, and that's just from having these studio lights. I have two studio lights here off to the side pointing down to my desk, and that does make a big difference. So let's go into editing this photo, and I'll show you the app that I use mostly. I have a whole bunch of different photo editing apps, but my favorite is Snapseed. So you'll go into Snapseed, and that's this one right here with like a little leaf. I'm pretty sure that it is a free app. I've had it forever. I'm sure you can pay for like upgrades and things like that, but I'm pretty sure it's a free app. If it's not a free app, it's pretty inexpensive. So Snapseed, and then I'm just gonna go ahead, excuse pictures of my silly dog and her teeth, but I'm gonna go ahead and open up that photo that we took of the Bible journaling page. So let me just move that out of the way a little bit. So one of the easiest things for adjusting the brightness and getting that really intense background is if you go into tools, there is this selective tool. And I don't know, I hope you're gonna be able to see it with the camera lighting. Maybe if I turn down my brightness a little bit, that'll be better. Okay, so there's this selective tool. It's a little circle with a little dot on the inside. And then all you're gonna do is tap on one of the corners of your photo, and it's gonna put a little blue B, and then slide right for brightness. And I punch that like all the way up, and you can see it's brightened that corner, but it's not affecting the colors of my photo. So it's just brightening that background. Now I can go down here, and I'm gonna click the little plus button, and that's gonna give me another little tool, and I'm gonna put it in one of the other corners. Again, slide right to brighten up the background. Can go ahead and hit that plus sign, grab another one, put it in another corner, and punch that up. Now you can move these around if you need to, reset them if you tap it, delete it, you know, you can do all kinds of goodness like that. I'll go ahead and add another one in this other corner down here and brighten that up. Now you can go back in if there's some darker areas. You can add more of these around if you need to get rid of your shadows. Just remember that you want it to still look lifelike, and so lifelike means there's gonna be some shadows in your photo, so you want to leave a little bit of shadows. I'm not loving this shadow situation up here just because it's kind of wonky. There we go. Okay, so now if I go ahead and just tap the check mark, you'll see already this photo is pretty bright. Colors are really good. I would be happy with posting this just the way it is. But if you're really wanting to punch up the colors a little bit and the contrast and things like that, I just go over to looks, and then there is this pop option, and I just pick pop. And it just gives a little, so this is the original photo. So you can see before we did all the whiteness in the background, and then this is the edited photo. So that right there, I'm happy with. So I can just go ahead and hit my check mark. I'm going to export it, and I always save a copy. I don't like to overwrite the one that I already have. And there you go. That is already set and ready to go onto Instagram. Now, in the tools section, you can play around with, you know, the tune image. If you, like currently it's on brightness, if you just slide up, gives you different menus. So your contrast, saturation, let's say you want those colors really deep. By sliding to the right, you can see my colors are getting really deep and bright. You can wash them out, so it gives that more kind of just soft wash look to it. So you can really play around with those settings to figure out, you know, what you like best. But I want it to be pretty realistic. So that is what I do. Now, when I go to post on Instagram, let me show you one final step that I usually do. So here's my photo here. Now, when I come into this section, they have some different like filters that you can put onto your photo. So this is my edited photo that we just edited. I like to always use the Juno filter. Now, if I just tap the Juno filter, it really kind of washes things out. Not too bad necessarily on this photo, but sometimes it'll just really just wash out the photos. So if you tap on it again, you can reduce the opacity of that filter. So here is no filter, here's filter. And I don't know that you're even really gonna be able to see it on camera, but it's just lightening up my shadows just a little bit. And Juno has a slight cool tone to it. You can't really notice it so much in this photo because I got a pretty good white photo to begin with, but it has like a coolness to it. And I overall, if you go to my feed, have a kind of cool tone to my feed, really bright, but my whites are not warm whites. They lean a little blue, which I know seems weird, but that's just a personal preference of mine. So there are some tips. Like I said, that Snapseed app is all I use. Just a couple taps and my photo is edited. So let's head on over to my computer and I'll show you how I edit a similar photo in Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop. I have whatever the newest version of Photoshop is. Now, Photoshop has changed if it's been a long time since you've used it. It used to be that you could just like go to Costco, buy Photoshop, and you were good to go. But now they do it as like a monthly subscription service. So you do have to pay monthly. And you have a couple options. You can pay monthly and just get access to one Adobe product. So if you just wanted Photoshop, you could do that. Or you can pay a higher monthly fee and get access to all of them, or they have a couple different bundles. I do all of them because I use Adobe Premiere Pro for my photo editing, so that's what works for me. A little tip for those of you who are college students, even if you only take one college class a year for, you know, your certifications or whatever you're doing, if you have a college email address, you can get a discounted rate on your Adobe products. So you just use your college email address to sign up. There's a couple different things you have to do, and then you can get a discounted rate. So definitely utilize that if you've got that. So here I've gone ahead and opened up the photo. This is the original photo that we took before we did any editing over on my phone. I also went ahead and took a second photo and kind of staged it with some little bits and bobs. I do need to crop this just a little bit because I'm getting my desk in there, but I wanted to show you why I don't take photos like this very often if I'm going to be editing in the way that I'm editing today, because it is a little bit difficult to edit with the technique that I use when you start adding a lot of like confetti or glitter or small pieces or fluffy things like this. It can get kind of tricky. So I will show you that towards the end, but let's start here. So the very first thing that I do is use the spot healing brush, and I'm going to clean up anything that's on my desk. A lot of this does get blown out when I start, you know, intensifying the whites and things like that, but I just want to make sure that my background's good to go. So I am working on my desk where I have paint splatters, and so I need to clean that up. So I use a soft round brush in a pretty, you know, small size, whatever's going to work for what I'm cleaning up. And so I have this little spot of paint, just click there, it's gone. I have some little smudges down here, and I can just go ahead and clean up any little spots and doodads that are on my desk. Sometimes I get a puppy fur on my Bible page. So if you've got, you know, dust or something that happens on your layout, you can clean that up as well. So I like to start with that. Now, I don't work with a whole lot of layers because I'm not a professional, and I just do this quick and easy, and so that's what we're gonna do. So my next step is to start working on this background and get it as light as I can before I start jumping into all of my adjustments. So I'm gonna come over here and grab the Dodge tool. If you click and hold, you've got Dodge, Burn, and Sponge. So we're gonna use the Dodge tool. The Dodge tool makes things lighter. I do wanna bump this up to a little bit bigger size here, not that big. Let's go, that'll work. Again, I'm using a soft round brush, and I want it pretty big. If you go in with a small brush, you get harsh lines. So let me show you what that looks like. If I go in here with a small brush and start coloring in, see how I get harsh lines? But if I go in with a bigger brush, like right around 400, it's just softer. See how soft that is? So what I'm going to do is I'm just clicking and holding down my mouse button. Now I am working on a PC, so sorry all you Apple people, I don't know what the commands are. And I'm just going to focus on the white area. I'm going to try not to touch anything that's colored, but that's not a hard and fast rule. So I do go ahead and touch the edge of my Bible just because I want to brighten that up. And you can see it's just brightening things up. For this first pass, I do go over my tabs just because it's too finicky to not touch them. I do go over my coil on my binding. It is softening a little bit, but that's okay. We'll bring some of that back when we do some of our other editing. And you can see with this tool, it's pretty forgiving. If I touch a page or whatever, it's okay. It's a soft brush, so it's not going to give me harsh lines. So there is one pass. I do like to go over a second time. Now the second time I go over, I'm more careful to just stay in the white areas. So like I'm not going to touch my tabs, I'm not going to touch my Bible page. And again, this is, you can see, just brightening up that whiteness. And sometimes this is all you need. If you've got good studio lights, or if you took a good photo in front of a window, you may not need to do much more than this step here. Just, kind of lightening up the whiteness and getting it a little bit brighter. In here, I may come over my tabs just a little bit just so I can make sure I get that corner. Anywhere that's dark, this is just going to brighten up that darkness a little bit. So there we go. We've got that. So now we can go ahead and go into adjustments. I like to start with exposure. I do the same order, same set of steps, every single photo I do, no matter what it is. Unless I'm doing like people or landscapes, you may need to approach this a little bit differently. But as far as flat lays with white backgrounds, these are the techniques that I do. So exposure, and then I'm going to grab the white point eyedropper, and I'm going to click on one of kind of my darker corners. I don't want to click necessarily on the darkest part of my photo because I feel like it gets too blown out. I'm just going to go for kind of a mid-range area. So here is without, here is with. You can see it's already getting brighter, already looking better, just bumping up that brightness. Next adjustment is going to be brightness and contrast. I pump up the brightness quite a bit, and then I lower the contrast quite a bit. I used to bump up the contrast, but I found that I liked the end results a lot better. If I lower the contrast, it's not as harsh. My colors aren't as harsh if I lower my contrast. Now, I like this to be pretty white. I'm paying attention to some of these areas that were my darker areas originally. You can see up in here, you can see right in here. That's what I'm paying attention to when I move this slider. And you're probably like, Lindsey, you're losing detail. It's okay, don't worry, we're gonna save it. But if you go too far, then I'm losing way too much. I don't wanna go this far because I start losing some of the lighter colors and areas of my photo, and it's harder to bring that back. So I want it just kind of fuzzy, kind of hard to see. All right, so there's the brightness contrast. Next up is levels. This is where we bring back anything that got lost. Now, with this tool here, if you are a Photoshop pro, or if you've got time, you can go in here and individually mess with all kinds of things. This girl ain't got time for that, so I go auto. This just pumps up the color, deepens the blackness, and brings back some of the richness of the photo. So here is without, Here's with levels, and you can see we're starting to look a lot better there. Now, as one final little touch, I mess with the vibrance setting. Now, my lighting is always pretty consistent. I try to take photos in the morning. I have daylight bulbs in my overhead light, and then I have my studio lights. So it's always pretty consistent. So I'm just gonna bump this up just a few points. Not very much at all. I don't even know that you'll be able to see the difference. It just bumps up the brightness and intensity of those colors just a smidge, because I'm all about that color if we're painting, right? So there's a look at that. Now, what I like to do is go ahead and click on the top one here, hold Shift, click on the bottom one here. It's going to highlight all of my layers. Control G or Command G, I think, if you're on Apple, and that's going to group that setting together. So here's our photo before all of those layers. This is just with that dodge tool around the edges, and then here is after all that editing. So looking much better already, but we are not done. Now, one thing that I really like about this is now we can take all these steps that we just did and apply them to any photos that we have open. So let's say that I am doing a blog post and I've got 10 photos that I took all at the same time. So my lighting's the same, my setup's pretty much the same. I'm just taking, you know, pictures of maybe different pages or different areas of my page. I can go ahead and right click on this group, duplicate the group, and then apply it to any of the photos that I have open. So I'm going to go ahead and apply it to that other photo that we took. That's this one here. So here is without, here's with, and you can see done. I don't have to do all those steps again. I do need to make sure that I go back in and use the dodge tool because I did not do that on this photo yet, so just keep that in mind. But we'll finish this up in just a few minutes with that photo. Okay, so there we go for that. I'm going to go ahead and right click and flatten image. One of the biggest helps are actions, and this is something that I love to use, saves time. I'm sure I could turn what I just did into an action, but it's always slightly different based off the photo, so I don't do that. Actions are something that you can find. You can either pay for them and get them free. I'll link the ones down below that I use. You can search on YouTube. There are tutorials for how to install the actions into Photoshop. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but there's all different ones depending on what you want to do. Basically, this is the same steps that we did, just different adjustments, different tools, and it does it all for you. So I'll link the ones that we're using today. I'm going to start with Improved Dark Portrait. This is something that I do almost on every single photo that I edit, whether it's people, whether it's flat lays, landscapes. This just really improves the overall feel of the photo. So in your actions toolbar here, that's this little triangle, actions. I'm going to come down to Improve Dark Portrait, and then we're going to click here and click play. And so basically this is going to play out as if I'm individually going in and doing all of these steps, and it just does it for you. It's like magic. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this background, second background copy that it made. Shift, click on the top here, Control G, and group all that together. So here's a look at what I had edited, and then here is a look at it after the Improved Dark Portrait. So you can see that it's intensifying the black, bringing richness of the colors back. It just overall looks better. So that is a big help. I'm going to go ahead and right click and flatten the image at that point. You want to make sure that you don't have any excess layers. You're just working off of one layer when you use actions, or it starts to play funny and do weird things. So you want to make sure that you're just working with one background. Okay, at this point, it's pretty good. You could probably leave it and be good, but I'm a perfectionist, like I said, so I like to do all the things. So I come back up here and use Smooth, Settle, Cross Process. These processes are for creative portraits, so they're more suited if you're doing like people, but I found that it works for these flat lays as well. I just have to adjust it just a little bit. So going into Smooth, Settle, Cross Process, I'm going to hit play. And this is just going to brighten things up. Now, like I said, because it's for people, it has this skin smoothing layer. So you could go in there and do some fancy masking and smooth out skin on people. I'm not doing that today, so we're going to delete that. Now, if you wanted to go in here at any point and adjust any of these layers that they have in here, you can go in and individually alter each one of these. I don't mess with them too much. With this particular one, you can see it's a little blown out for my taste, so I do like to go ahead and group all of this together, and I like to lower the opacity of the overall action. So here is without, here is with. You can see it's just brightening up some of my shadow areas and edges and things like that. You may have a preference where you like it better like this. You're just gonna have to, you do you. So I'm gonna lower that just a little bit. Okay, so there is with that action. Now I have found that this one kind of adds a little bit of a warmth to the photo that I don't particularly like. You may like that. I don't. I like my photos to be on the cooler side. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So we're going to go ahead and flatten the image. And now I can go into adjustments and grab the photo filter adjustment layer. And I like the cooling filter 80. And you're like, whoa, Lindsey, that's blue. Don't worry. Let's lower the opacity down to like 13, barely a hint of blue at all. So here is without, here is with. It just adds a slight coolness to my whites and to my shadows that I prefer. Now, if you've found that you've lost some of the intensity of your color at any point, especially with that smooth, subtle cross process action, you can come back in and add another levels auto set, and that's going to deepen my colors a little bit. So here is without, here is with. And then I can always, again, adjust that opacity if I feel like it's too much. And there we go. So now I can go ahead and flatten this. So one last final step, because at this point it looks pretty good. But what I have found is if I stop at this point and then use it in a blog post, my blog has a white background. And sometimes when I put photos with white backgrounds on a white blog post, I will notice there's some darkness in my corners that I don't notice when the photo is on its own. So we're going to fix that. So we're going to go in here and we're going to create a new layer. And then we're going to pick up the paintbrush. Again, I'm working with a large, soft, round brush. Make sure that I am on white. And we're going to go in and color in the white space. Now, this is a white paintbrush. So if I paint over things, it's white. We don't want to do that. So we want to make sure that we just touch white areas, really focusing on the edges. It is a soft brush, so I want to stay back away from the edge of the page just a little bit. If I get too close, it starts adding some fuzziness to my colored areas, and I don't want that. So let's go ahead and just color in. And this is kind of just paint by braille because it's white. You can't hardly see what it's doing, but trust me, this step makes a big difference if you're putting your photo against a white backdrop like on a blog. Again, being careful not to touch anything that is colored, really focusing on those corners. I do like to lower the opacity just a little bit to help it blend in with some areas that I didn't touch. So here is without and here is with. You can see especially in this area, without, with, and it just brightens up those shadows just a little bit. Right click and flatten image. So at this point, I would call this good to go. So let me take this off. So this is pretty much what the photo looks like before, and this is after. So much better. And then I'll go ahead and just save it. I usually save in medium, and it saves it in a good enough quality for posting online. If you're going to be printing, of course, you want to adjust that and maybe do, you know, a larger, better quality. But for Instagram and blogs, medium is just fine. And it's good to go. Now let's talk about this photo here. So let me go ahead and our first step again, remember, was to use, the healing brush. So we're going to heal some of these little spotty dot places where I have paint. But then the next step was to take the dodge tool. And this is where I have issues when I have, you know, confetti or glitter or fluffy things like this. Because my first layer, yes, I can go over everything and just bump up the brightness of everything. You could even do the Bible page, but I've found that if I go over my Bible page with this, I lose my text. For some reason, it's just bright enough that it makes the text go away. So I'm going to do everything but the main part of the Bible page. You can see this really fixes this warm, weird corner up here. Okay, no, but when I go in with my second layer, again, I want to try to only put it on the white areas, but that's hard because of this confetti. If you go in with a small brush, you get those harsh lines. So what you can do is you can go in, you can go over your confetti, pretend like it's not there. We're going in with our second layer of dodge. Remember, I'm going to avoid my coil. I'm going to go over the confetti, but I'm going to show you how to bring back the color. It's not perfect, but it kind of works. It's especially hard with this. So if we cover this, and then if we come over here and switch to the burn tool, the burn tool is opposite of the dodge tool. I do want still a soft round, but I want a little bit smaller. I want it just the size of whatever I'm wanting to bring back. So if I just click on this, it's going to make it darker, basically counteracting the dodge that we just did. But you can see how quickly this becomes very time consuming, especially if you have a whole bunch of confetti on your desk. And I could go in even twice, would kind of intensify the color. And this can be a little finicky and not perfect. Like if you have a pen laying on your desk or something like that, you could use the same technique to bring back you know, the color of the pen. Now, if you get into something like this, I want to use a little bit bigger of a brush, but it's really hard to go into each little individual leaf without touching the background too much. You can see this gets time consuming very quickly. So if you ain't got nothing better to do than to edit photos like this, then go for it, girlfriend. But I got a lot of stuff I need to do. So the last thing I want to do is to paint over every little leaf of a bush. So I'm not going to do that. And that's why I don't do a lot of editing with props in my photos, because it can be much more time consuming. You can see I'm really getting this dark shadow here. I could go in with the dodge tool even another time, kind of make this a little bit smaller, and go in and, you know, really brighten that up if I need to. But you can see now I'm having some issues with, you know, the whiteness is just harsh. So it's just harder to edit if you've got things like this. So I try to use like die cuts or plates or pens, things that have solid straight lines that are easier for me to go in with that dodge, or I'm sorry, with the burn tool to fix and correct once I've done the dodge tool. Now you're probably asking, Lindsey, can you just skip that step? Well, yeah, you could skip that step, but I found that it really helps brighten up my shadows and things like that, because if I don't use this, my shadows stay really dark in areas, and I don't love that. So I hope that those tips are helpful. I hope that that gives you some ideas for how to use, you know, either your phone or Photoshop. You're probably like, Lindsey, why do you even do Photoshop? It's way faster on your phone. Yes, it is faster on your phone, but if you're doing a bunch of batch editing or, you know, for blog posts where I want them to be just perfect because they are larger photos, I will use Photoshop. If I'm just posting on Instagram, then no, I'll just use the Snapseed program. Now, if at any point you saw something where like, Lindsey, that's not the easiest way to do that, leave me a comment down below. Let me know, or maybe help somebody else out. If you've got questions, leave those down below. Check out the description box. I'll have links to everything that I mentioned, including those actions and where you can get those online for free, and check those out. I hope that this is helpful, or I hope this video was helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.